Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ball and All podcast. My name is Mpho. I'm the host of the Ball and All podcast. What we've been doing on the Ball and All podcast for the past month or two is in the second season of doing this. I do a daily recap of what's happening at the Basketball Africa League in 2022. I did that in the first year. Now I'm doing that this year, so just continually doing that. We've gone through this hour conference. The videos are on YouTube. Also now doing the Nile conference. And so today's show is a Nile conference daily recap. Most importantly, please do follow me on Twitter at Mpho, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's day 4 in the Nile conference. It was a bit of a moving day because it was the first chance we get to see the teams that aren't returning, or the teams that aren't the juggernauts, the heavyweights, Petro de Luanda and Zamalek, play against each other, fighting for 4th and 3rd spot in the conference. Because effectively, when you looked at this group, it was those two going through the semi-finals from last year, and that you could have banked on, you could put money on that unless something horrible happened. But in the other 4 who came through the qualifiers needing that's where the tournament play was going to be, and today was the start of that. We did get a game between FAP and Mpho in the second day. That was a really good game. FAP won that, but then now you're starting to see the other teams: Mpho against Cobra Sport, FAP against the Cape Town Tigers, fighting against teams that are at a similar level to them, fighting to make it to Kigali, and that's what we got today. First game was Cobra Sport against Mpho. Cobra Sport coming out 108-82 winners. Another 100-point game in the Nile conference. Now starting to see some of that offense coming through. But largely today was a day of efficiency across the board. If you weren't efficient on offense, you weren't going to win the game. And if you were, you set yourself up. Mpho was Cobra Sport was 61% from the 2-point range compared to 41% for Mpho. 40% from 3 compared to 25% for Mpho. Even free throw, 72% for Cobra Sport, gets to 57. Both teams super defensive, really good to see their structures, but I kind of felt that Cobra Sport found a lot easier to score. They have length, they have a lot more size, and it was a little bit easier for Mayan Kier, who got 24 points and 11 rebounds, and also Padiet Wang, who also was the leading scorer for Cobra Sport in their game against, I think it was Petro de Luanda. He scored 24 points in this game, 5 rebounds and 8 assists. They controlled the game. They had a lot of intensity, a lot of urgency. Effectively, Cobra Sport, because they lost their first 2 games, losing a third game kind of resigned you to probably being eliminated, knowing that they still have a game against Pedro against Zamalek later on in the tournament. So they had to try and win this one to kind of assert themselves. They were really good. They had 4 players who scored in double digits. It kind of tells you where they were. Points in the paint, 50 points in the paint compared to 34. That's, I think, where this battle was won. It was easier for Cobra Sport to just try to get inside, shoot on the inside. And also from a defensive perspective, Cobra Sport came through denying Mpho that ability. Listening to Dikembe Mutombo on the sideline is probably a highlight of all the Mpho matches. But his countrymen were not there. They don't have. I think they would have wanted him in the paint, his presence in the paint, to kind of stop this Cobra Sport team from going. And this Cobra Sport team were just a better offensive team. You could see that. You could see that all around. They were much better shooters from 3, even from the jump shot from anywhere. They were able to do that. There wasn't a place where you could say Mpho were beating. But however, funny enough, from a rebounding perspective, Mpho won the rebounding battle. It was 50-43. Normally, when you do win your rebounds, because they had double the amount of offensive rebounds than Cobra Sport, but they could not capitalize. And they had 24 offensive rebounds compared to 12, and they only had 21 second chance points. That kind of tells you that they didn't have that efficiency on offense. They weren't able to put it back. Everything was contested against them. But even then, the ability to be able to score in and around the rim. In the first quarter, they were 1 from 10 in that 2-point range, 20% inside the arc. That's not something that wins you a lot of games in this tournament. And that's something that you need to work on. But a good game from Cobra Sport, especially after losing the first 2. Now they're back in it. a really healthy points difference as well to help them get themselves back in the tournament. I think they are going to be a very good playoff pick if you're looking in this tournament. But then the next game, if you were, that was FAP and Cape Town Tigers. If you were a betting man, if you were because FAP has been there, had the experience, made it to the quarterfinals of BAL1, you would have expected FAP to win and run away. They were one of the better defensive teams in Basketball Africa League 1 in 2021. They are still a really good defensive team. But I think last night they made their match. The South African team, Cape Town Tigers, coming through with a 3-point win. Evans Gamapano with a go-ahead 3 with about 0.8 seconds left on the clock. It was a tussle between two teams who were really good defensively. The one team, and I think for me, the one thing that FAP would be disappointed in is that they weren't efficient. They had 68 attempts. I think they had close to 20 more attempts than the South Africans. They had 13 more shot attempts than the South Africans, and they still didn't win. They also had more free throws. They had 25 free throws, of which they made 18. Let's wait, hold up, just getting that for you. They had 25 free throws compared to the South Africans with 24. But they didn't make most of their free throws, 68% free throw shooting compared to 75. It was just one of those games where you felt that the Cape Town Tigers had the momentum coming out of the Zamalek game. They got beaten by Zamalek, but it didn't feel like it was as dominant for Zamalek as you would expect it when you saw the scoreline. But they kept on pushing through. They were changing leads here and there throughout the game. There was a point where FAP, when they started the game, they only scored 10 points in the first quarter. They came back. Cape Town Tigers only scored 10 points in the second quarter, and FAP came back to do that. Then Cape Town Tigers came back in the third quarter, only to be down by 4 going into the final quarter. And then that final quarter, all defense was taken out, largely because this game was a war. It was attritional, it was very physical. Lots of injuries. Lebesa Selepe turned his ankle. I think one of the FAP players also was out. Esome, I think is his name. He was also out due to injury, and they didn't return. You also had Princely walking out with a dead leg. You also had players being fouled out, largely from the Cape Town Tiger side. And this is where I think FAP didn't make the most of it. Towards the final 4 minutes, the Cape Town Tigers were playing without their talisman, Mick Kabongo, who in Basketball Africa League 1 was the number 1 assist leader. And he still is doing a really great job. I think he got 8 assists in this game. Billy Preston, who is their offensive guy, they go through him. The Cape Town Tigers offense goes through him. If he's double teamed, everyone else gets the ball and gets sharing. He wasn't on the field. That kind of hurt their defense on the back end, but I felt that FAP weren't able to convert. They were on 70 points in the last minute, and they had 3 possessions and they couldn't score. Whereas Cape Town, whenever they went down in the last minute, they kept on shooting. Ben Myberg, 3 from 4 from the 3-point line. All three key 3-pointers. Whenever the lead was about to go away, Ben would get the ball wide open because they're double teaming Gamapano or even Mekabongo or even Billy Preston, and he would just shoot. Even he got the massive 3 to tie the game. And then Evans Gamapano came through. There were also some free throws in the back end of the game where Evans Gamapano was just slotting in really nicely, 100% in that period. But it just came down to the team that could hold on to their nerve the most, and the Cape Town Tigers did, even when they didn't have their 2 best players on the court. That tells you something about this team, tells you a lot about where this team is going, and they've given themselves a chance to make it into the playoffs. They just need to win one more game. Couple of shout-outs to Nkosinati Sibanyoni. I see your rebounding efforts. The Cape Town Tigers were out-rebounded, but he held his own in there, and he was getting the boards. And that was the thing with FAP. You beat them on rebounds. I think the rebounding stat here is, let me give you that. The rebounding stat is 47 rebounds compared to 33. They even had 19 offensive rebounds versus 5, and they could not convert. They could only get 16 second chance points. You should always be getting more. Remember, if you're getting a second chance point, it's a point from an offensive rebound, which means at least minimum 1.5 times that. So if it's 19, it should be around about 30, but they couldn't. And that kind of tells you the type of finishing there was. Also the type of defense there was inside there. Cape Town Tigers, whenever Billy Preston was off the floor, defense wasn't that great. Whenever he was on, everything worked. Mick Kabongo helped offense go without Billy Preston. And in those final few minutes, it was down to Evans Gamapano, who was bringing the ball up the court. And he had to do it. He had to work it out. But they managed to do that. Even the three that Gamapano ended up scoring, that Jamel Ortiz brought up the court. There was a shot from Fap, a 3-point shot that rimmed out. They got the ball again. They pushed it out. Now then they couldn't convert, but then finally Cape Town took the rebound. So that's where Cape Town Tigers needs to kind of fix that rebounding battle. They don't have a guy who can give them size. Billy Preston does that, but he does everything. He literally does. He's the defensive guy. He's also the offensive guy. He's like the AD. And that's just great, but you know it gets him in trouble. It gets into foul trouble a lot. So does Mick Kabongo. So they need to work that out. Fap needs to attack the basket. They really do need to attack the basket. This thing of shooting threes needs to end. If I was the Fap coach, I'd be like, forget about threes, unless if it's wide open. Outside of that, I need you to find a way to get the ball inside. And you saw with Cedric Kenfui, he did quite a lot of that. He tried to drive inside, he tried to get them looks inside, and he came out with 16 points in that game. Jamel Ortiz, 17 points in that game without Billy Preston. Evans Gamapano came out with 24. Mick Kabongo with 12 assists. That was a really great game. It's really awesome. Ben Meinberg, 9 points, key 9 points. But the most important one, I think, was Daniel Prinsloo, the captain. He came out with 2 points, very important 2 points that well in the fourth quarter. He's struggling with scoring, but he managed to get through there. And so Cape Town Tigers, one win, and now you've got 3 teams below Zamalek and Petro Delanda with 1 win each, and it's probably going to be the fight between those teams. Remember, it's a head-to-head first, then you go to points difference. So that's going to be something that we need to watch out for. But let's have a look at the standings and then the fixtures coming up, because there's some tasty fixtures happening. So the standings as they are after last night's games, it's Petro at the top, Zamalek second. Those two are running away with 100%. But then you've got Cobra Sport. You've also got Cape Town Tigers in there at 3 and 4. And obviously FAP is at the bottom, behind Cape Town Tigers, largely because they've played one this game, as well as Cape Town Tigers have beaten FAP, so that's a head-to-head decider there that kind of gets them through. And essentially this table is based on wins. So whoever wins the most, it's not necessarily win-loss, but they do count that as well. So if you look here, Cobra Sport, FAP, and Cape Town Tigers, if they start beating each other, they might find themselves in a little bit of trouble. But Cape Town Tigers are now beating FAP. If Cobra Sport can beat FAP, that will help Cape Town Tigers necessarily get through, because all Cape Town Tigers needs to do is beat Espoir Fukash. And even if they lose to Cobra Sport, they'll be in, because they've got a head-to-head against FAP. So that's going to be quite interesting. FAP, don't forget, FAP have beaten Petro de Luanda in the group games in Kigali last year. So they could also do that to try and get through. So you're kind of effectively telling FAP to split one of those games between Petro and Zamalek to try and get themselves back into a thing. Cape Town Tigers in a really good spot, Cobra Sport in a very good spot to go to Kigali next month. And so really good to see how it's shaping up this. And FAP can come back, beat Cobra Sport. They've already beaten Espoir Fukash, they need to beat Cobra Sport, and they need to split one of those two against Petro. If not, they need Cobra Sport to beat Cape Town Tigers, and for them to beat Cobra Sport, then it's a 3-way tie, and it's going to go down to points difference. So a lot is still happening, a lot on the go, but we have found ourselves in a really good spot in this tournament, in this conference. Now, here are the fixtures. Next fixture, Cape Town Tigers are just playing every single fixture. They're going to get a rest in the next set of in the next 3 after the April the 15th. They're going to get a rest until the 18th. But let me just take the banner out. So now Cape Town Tigers start the next game. That next game, Cobra Sport and Cape Town Tigers. FAP wants Cobra Sport to beat the Cape Town Tigers. If not, if the Cape Town Tigers beat Cobra Sport, they'll find themselves in a little bit of trouble. Because effectively they need Cape Town Tigers to lose, and they need to beat Cobra Sport. So that's a massive game for everybody in this group, especially for FAB, because if they want to make the playoffs, they need Cobra Sport to do them a favor. Cape Town Tigers effectively could qualify for the playoffs if they beat Cobra Sport. Yes, they'll still need to beat Mpho, so nothing's out there, but 2 wins gives you a very good chance of qualifying as the 4th seed on the back end. And that's going to require some head-to-heads and all of those things and points differences. But if Cape Town Tigers can do this, but remember, in the East qualifiers, Cobra Sport beat Cape Town Tigers in the semi-finals. So let's see. And they've also got Cobra Sport. I think they've got Leon Harrington, who used to play for the Cape Town Tigers. So that's also kind of something to look out for. But after that, at 10 p.m., Zamalek against Petro de Luanda, 1 versus 2 for the supremacy of the Nile Conference. This game is a must-watch. This could be a potential semi-final or even a potential final. So you need to watch this one because it's going to be insane. Great basketball on offer. 2 powerhouses of African basketball coming up against each other. And then towards the back end of next week, when we come back to the 16th, the 18th, as well as the 19th, you're going to start seeing some really big games. Like look at the 18th, FAB versus Cobra Sport. That's effectively probably even a playoff game. And then Cape Town Tigers and Mpho, everyone's going to be looking at that game to see if they can get themselves back into the tournament. So lots of basketball still on the go. Really exciting, and I'm excited for the Basketball Africa League. It's the Nile Conference. It's heating up. And that's what you want. But from myself, let me end it here. Thank you very much for watching the Basketball Africa League daily recap of the Nile Conference. I'll be back tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Saturday morning, because it's a rest day today. We start on the 15th and we go through that Easter weekend. Happy Easter to all my Christian followers, and we'll see you with a recap of day 5 on a Saturday afternoon. Outside of that, thank you very much. Have a great day, and lesale kakafiso.